Hello. For a teacher of religion, this weekend has been a real showstopper. There are two major stories that require attention. The first is about a Hasidic rabbi in Israel who claims that taking the COVID vaccine will turn his congregation gay. Now, this is simply astonishing, and his chop logic commendably farcical. Rabbi Daniel Azor is simply wrong, but the tone of his pronouncement also suggests that he is homophobic. So in mocking this claim, we should not overlook how offensive and disturbing is the background assumption. More than that, the science is clear. Being gay is not a choice or a side effect of any COVID vaccine. Now, Rabbi Azor went a little bit further. He talked about a global malicious government. He talked specifically of criminal organizations, of Freemasons, Illuminati, and Bill Gates. The New World Order. This is nonsensical. It is time, I think, this conspiracy rubbish about Illuminati was put to bed, and Masonry is a fairly open book. I'm going to talk further about both of these subjects in a week or so. So hold out till then. Rabbi Azor's statement is in contrast to advice from other Haredi rabbis in Israel, both in the Ashkenazi and in the Sephardi traditions, like the leaders of the Ponovitch Yeshiva, Chaim Kanievsky and Gershon Edelstein, I think, and the Shas spiritual leader as well, who runs the Purat Yosef Yeshiva, Shalom Cohen. So when you've got a group of people who are saying, go ahead, take the vaccine, and then you've got this lone wolf who is simply crazy, this is disturbing. It is worrying when stupid people peddle ridiculous ideas in the name of religion, and to do so with the religious authority that they command. Here's a picture of Rabbi Daniel Azor. Now, another example from this week comes from Greece. And this one may be more worrying because it follows in the footsteps of a man that I knew in Greece 20 years ago called Archbishop Christodoulos. Now, when I approached his office for help after my partner Najati, who is Turkish, was tortured by the Greek Coast Guard and raped with a truncheon, the Archbishop went on national television the same day and made world headlines saying, Oli Turki ni varvari. All Turks are barbarians. His Grace, the Archbishop, of course, did not see me when I visited his office on that occasion. Instead, I had a lengthy, if farcical, conversation with a charming, albeit youthful, improbably youthful, archimandrite who was constantly being interrupted on the phone by a man who was asking how the interview was progressing. And when the archimandrite, when I asked the archimandrite who was calling, he dismissed the calls as being incidental checks with the gardener. However, he treated the phone and the calls which were coming through the phone with great respect and addressed the speaker as Makariotita, which is a formal title. He assumed that I did not know Greek because we were speaking in English. I had no doubt then, and I have no doubt now, that the man on the telephone was indeed the Archbishop of Athens, and I certainly took his pronouncement that evening to a packed church and to national television to be a direct response to my request for his help. And of course, help never came, though I did have some success in a more theological discussion with the Archbishop a little bit later. Christodoulos got heavily involved in politics and wanted greater links between the state and the church. If you are Greek, you are Orthodox. If you are Orthodox, you are Greek. One of the things he said, without any thought for the large Muslim community in Thrace in northern Greece, a result of the problems in the early 1920s. He also vigorously opposed the building of a mosque for the large community in Athens to cater for, I think then it was 250,000 Muslims. And 10 years ago, permission was finally granted, but an alliance headed by Chrysiavgi, a very nasty militant faction, saw delays and rather disturbing graffiti all around the building site until late last year. In the wake of modifications to Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, this modest mosque in Athens was opened. It's in a fairly run-down area, Vouanikos. There's a naval school, and there's a central bus depot there. My personal impression is it looks a little bit like a community centre. It seems to me to be a wholly graceless effort. Now, this week, today, the 18th, begins an octave of Christian unity around the world, 8 days, to search for community and positivity. And I think that spirit of positivity and cooperation should go beyond Christianity, particularly now in a time of a global pandemic that we all share. Instead, the current Archbishop of Athens has revived his predecessor's abhorrent invective. Today, there's been an attempt at some sort of diplomatic climb down in the newspapers, but it's undignified and disgraceful. The whole thing is disgraceful as anything that was perpetrated by his predecessor, Archbishop Christodoulus. I'm really disappointed in Hieronymus II. He's currently recovering from COVID, but he was appointed and enthroned in 2008 when Christodoulus died. And for the most part, unlike his predecessor, he's chosen to be quiet and modest and to get on with running the church. Until last week, when in such an uncharacteristic spat he came out with the most astonishing invective, which a local Greek Muslim leader has described as Islamophobic and probably or possibly a hate crime. I'm inclined to agree. This is what he said. He said, Islam is not a religion but a political party and pursuit, and its followers are people of war. They are people who spread. This was said on national television at a time, A, of growing tension between Greece and Turkey, and B, in the run-up to international talks between these two countries. It is mischief-making in the mould of his predecessor. It is unworthy. When a bishop is enthroned in the Orthodox Church, the first thing that people do is cheer, and they cry, "Worthy, worthy." This man is demonstrating that even if he was once worthy, he is no longer worthy. The fact that this sort of thing was said by a leader of the church in Greece is all the more problematic because there has been a documented rise in xenophobia and a continued struggle in Greece with right-wing nationalism. And In the middle of this, we get the provincial leader of Thraki, Ahmed Ibrahim, who says, Islam wants peace between religions. We should embrace that idea. What is common between these two stories is the idea that there is a force behind the scenes that is gaining power. This is what the Greeks call the parakratos, and what the Turks call derin devlet. Donald Trump has used the same idea and actually directly translated both the Greek and the Turkish terms when he calls and talks about the deep state. That's what the Turkish word means, deep state. But there is no Masonic conspiracy, and the Illuminati were a modest and short-lived organization in 18th century Bavaria. I will deal with all this in a week or so, in a later talk. But for now, I think Rabbi Azor needs to listen to his Hasidic friends and to do some science before he opens his mouth again in public. And his beatitude, Archbishop Hieronymus II, needs to have a chat with his far wiser friend and much more reticent leader and brother bishop, his beatitude, Patriarch Bartholomew in Istanbul. Anyway, so today, as I say, maybe I didn't say, but fairly focused on religious themes, but because this is the first day of this little period, the octave of Christian unity, and I think we should be as united as possible in seeking to be kind, and the idea of loving kindness is a central theme in all three of the great religions. In Hebrew, for example, in Judaism, it's called Chesed, and Abraham is particularly rewarded for his loving kindness, and this is a theme which goes all the way through. So there we are.